Good day and welcome to another Marshall Forest conversation. My name is Stephen Parkus, and this is my good friend Logan. Logan, how you doing today?
Pretty good today. A little dreary outside, so I couldn't get out into the forest, but otherwise, pretty good day. How about yourself? How you doing today?
Yeah, about the same, man. About the same. It's a little rainy out, has been for the past couple days, so just kind of rolling with it. So yeah.
Plenty of work to do inside on the computer, I suppose.
So yeah, there's always plenty to do. Always plenty to do. Oh, but
I
it
agree.
is somewhat fitting, being that our topic today is walking, just getting our time outdoors in. And so yeah, I'm really making a point to get outdoors and at least take a walk into town at least once a day. For so many reasons, it's beneficial to me. I can't even remember where I heard it first, but in therapy years ago, someone gave the tip of just finding presence, in those moments when you're feeling scattered or overwhelmed, overstimulated, just finding presence in your senses. And so walking has always kind of been that for me. It's been my way to just pull back and sense and feel where I'm at, what's going on around me. And now it's turned into, a meditative time to think and contemplate. And that's not even getting into any, physical benefits or anything like that. But it's something that's a regular practice for me. And so I'm interested to hear your thoughts and opinions on it as, a certified coach and trainer, certified nutrition coach and personal trainer. Um, so yeah, anything you'd like to say on the topic before I dive in?
I've walked a lot. We used to walk a lot back in our teenage years, so I never really stopped. I walked around the mountain in my teens, right? So walking has been a big part of my life. And I definitely find many uses and purposes scientifically or just anecdotally backed, anecdotally meaning personal experience through personal experience or scientific research, we have plenty to pull from.
Absolutely. And I would also say, and I'm sure, you probably experienced this more than me, but just that willingness that we had as teenagers to walk and go anywhere by any means necessary, it kind of fostered that sense of not letting anything hold us back. We would walk 4 or 5 miles to hang out or do whatever, it wasn't an issue. Well, that's just what we did. So, yeah, it's an awesome thing. So today, how do you view and utilize walking in your personal movement practice? Warm up, recovery, ritual, connection.
Well, I mean, it depends on what kind of walking we're talking about, really. I prefer doing any kind of cardio I have to do, running, jogging, anything in the outdoors in nature. So I prefer, you know, hiking on trails and things like that, over, on a treadmill or an elliptical or anything of that nature. Even over the option of walking around downtown, on the sidewalk or, around shopping in a mall for myself again. And at the same time, I definitely find myself pacing around the house quite a bit. When deep in thought, I think something about the feet moving helps me at least think, and I've heard from a couple other people at least that that seems to be the case for them. And I think there's a little bit to that, as me and my sister spoke about in one of our podcast episodes that will be released soon. There's something to things moving past you that is triggers certain things in the mind, certain relaxation things, certain hormonal triggers. And so that is there regardless of what it is, where you are. But at the same time, I think because of us, and by us I mean humans, regardless of gender or nationality or anything, we evolved moving around from place to place by walking. We didn't even have bicycles. And even before horses, we used our own 2 feet to walk our asses wherever the hell we needed to go. So I think there is some kind of deep seated connection. And I think that might manifest differently between individuals. For myself, I can definitely get deeper into my thoughts and such when my feet are moving. I can also, problem solve better, I think, when my feet are moving. Some people, it's hands and stuff like that. For me, it's definitely more my feet. I gotta be moving. And even in high school, I remember saying, walks are magical things. And that was before I was in any way educated on any kind of science, really. I wasn't the greatest student back then. So that was just from personal experience purely. I always found it best to talk with people, get to know them when we were walking somewhere together. And I found I could get into deeper conversations with people I'm already familiar with when we walked places together. So they always just seem to have that magical quality to me, for me. Um, And that still manifests, such as pacing around the house when I'm thinking deeply about something, trying to figure something out or plan something out. Yeah, definitely. Also, I think this is now all the more able to be utilized due to dictation software. In other words, that software, which I honestly haven't used a lot myself. I definitely want to. I've looked into it a little bit, but where you can talk and it writes for you what you're saying, there's definitely something to that. And yeah, so that's kind of my own personal and definitely recovery, when you're down and out, beat up and such, and you're not really able to do much, you can usually walk unless you're bedridden, and that does happen due to certain conditions, but you can usually walk a little bit. And one of the first things they'll tell you in those situations when you get back to activity is just walk around a little bit. He was just
Oh
around the
yeah.
room, walk around a little bit. So yeah, walking is key in so many ways to just the human experience, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely agree. And it's an interesting thing to think about for sure. How
What has
much
been your experience with that makes you feel?
Um, yeah, I mean, I feel the same. Walking has always been an integral thing. I'm also a walker and talker. Even when I was a kid, when I was on the phone, I was like pacing back and forth. And now it makes sense. Totally makes sense. And especially, like I said earlier, how walking is very contemplative for me sometimes. That's because I'm able to process and the ideas come up in a different way than if I'm just sitting here trying to think deep. So yeah, it adds another facet, another layer to it. Like you said, building relationships, so many things. It kind of just breaks down that barrier, trying to talk to somebody and get to know them. You can focus on what's around you instead of having to like stare somebody in the eyes and talk to them. So yeah, absolutely. And just get to know nature, getting to know and connect with nature after, for myself, years of just not just being in survival mode or, an active addiction, whatever, not able to pay attention to things like sunrise, sunset, the birds outside first thing in the morning, things growing. I'm starting to garden again. So all these things are kind of interlinked for me. It's all that connection with the outdoors and natural life that I lost.
I can understand that for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And how often would you say you factor that into your routines? A walk, a hike, anything like that?
Well, generally, not always, but generally, a jog is a part of my wind down after, and not like a 10-minute jog around the block, like a 30-minute jog, out of town around a kind of old road slash now trail that goes up around the mountains a little bit, and then I circle back. And then on top of that, on my days off, especially if, somebody's around visiting or whatever, there's generally a hike involved. That's what I like to do when I'm hanging out with anybody these days. I mean, I'm in a great place for it here in southern Vermont. So, yeah, walking around, especially out in nature, is a big part for me. And like I said, I pace about when I think about things every day. So walking is definitely a big part of my life.
Absolutely. And for me, I find if I am having an extra overloaded day, I'm feeling extra chaotic, my emotions are wild. For me, it's calming and it brings me back into the present moment to just leave and go take a walk. Whether it's I go out and pace around the front porch or, to actually take a walk, it just brings me back to the present moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for you, do you feel like walking can be a tool for, sharpening awareness and bringing presence into the current moment?
I mean, sure it can. I think there definitely has to be that intention behind it. It doesn't have like that natural, if you walk, that's gonna happen kind of thing. I don't want to misrepresent it here. But I would like to note that, there was walking meditation as a part of Zen practices for a large period of, as we've both said in our own discussion here already, is we've both used it as a way to dig deeper, both within ourselves and in conversation with others. So I think there's kind of unarguably in that aspect to it, right? At the same time, I would to be a little sciencey on it for a bit, not like hard science, but just get a little more science minded here. I think a big part of why that's possible, especially in moments where, like you said, you're feeling chaotic, you got that like surge of energy, if you will, whether that's the emotion of frustration or anger or, upset or whatever. It's like a surge of energy, and so walking gets that out in a little ways, but in such a way, I think that again, it's such a natural thing for us to walk, right? And we're able to do it while also doing something else. And it's not even really something I think any of us would label as multitasking. That's how natural walking is to us.
Right.
Like, are you multitasking when you're walking and talking to somebody? Are you like, oh, I can't talk to you right now. I got to focus on walking. Generally, we don't do that because it's that natural. So you can do something else, such as do your breathing practices. And I would argue it's all the better to do it while walking when you're, that chaotic state because it's allowing you to get some of that energy out in a calm way, though that you can also do those practices. So that'd be kind of my little more science-minded look at it. Again, no formulas, no technical jargon.
No doubt. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I think what you said there is key. The intention of what we're going into it with is very important for sure. Yeah. Because I have noticed the walks that tend to be longer for me are when my intention is to explore or see something in particular rather than just to get out and get steps in or just go down the town or back.
If I'm focusing on just getting steps in, I don't want to fucking walk.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so, not sure that I would really classify this training, but in what ways can walking be treated as a form of discipline, do you think? I know you mentioned like kind of utilizing it for, breathing or other practices.
I
But yeah,
mean,
what
I
kind
think it can just help alongside those. And it's also, again, it's such a basic thing we do that it's an easy way to start building discipline, I think, in general, to include incorporate a daily walk.
yeah.
That would be my one piece there about
Mm.
this that we haven't already touched.
Yeah. No, I would agree. That's pretty much exactly what I would say. I mean, for me, I have a hill going down when I leave and a hill coming up, no matter which way I go, it's either uphill,
Yep.
downhill, one way. So, yeah, that's it. Just that commitment of knowing I gotta walk up that hill when I'm done. And yeah, I'm not gonna let it hold me back. Raining out, I still usually go. Maybe not if it's like downpour or anything like that, but yeah, I try to go rain or shine. Building up that just is it important to me? How important is it?
Absolutely.
And if it's important enough that I feel I need to do it every day, then how am I gonna stick with that? So,
And if you're aware of posture, proper posture, and how your body should feel and all that, it certainly can be a gentle way to kind of feel out your body, you know? And you can adjust your steps and such to like, bounce around a little bit and feel things out, with as minimal as possible impact and still be able to do that. So in
Yes,
that sense,
absolutely.
it can certainly be used in posture. But again, you need proper education on what good posture is, how it's supposed to feel, how those translate, yada yada yada. And if you don't, simply walking in front of a qualified trainer, um, it would allow them to kind of analyze your posture. At the same time, just standing in front of a qualified trainer allows them to analyze your posture and such, if that's something you're concerned about.
Yeah, definitely. And that is another thing that I was going to bring up. I'm glad you touched on it. Is just that mindfulness of, body presence. How am I standing? How deep am I breathing? How long are my steps? How in sync with my steps are with my breathing.
Right.
So, okay.
So,
Yeah. Also,
we were going through some real stressful shit in high school, and as again, we've both attested already, those that walks were a real positive in those times. And if that's not a testament to it being that, I don't know what is.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And in my experience, one of the best ways we can kind of move and get that trauma that's stuck in the body out is, just movement, walking, things like that. Just even something simple that's repetitive as jumping or walking,
Absolutely. And I will say this,
exercise.
as far as specific environments go, meaning like a hike on a path as compared to walking down the sidewalk. If you're extremely out of shape, meaning you
Mhm.
have issues with balance, bad joint pain, potential to collapse, all this, stick to the sidewalks for now. Believe it or not, that the little difference of the uneven ground and unpredictability of that uneven ground in a natural hiking path is too much for you at that point. And that can just be a goal to be able to do that. And that's great.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's plenty of paved trails out there, tracks, all kinds of things.
Absolutely,
Nothing wrong with that.
mulch and all
Yeah.
that, graveled and all. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Pick what works for you. Very good. Very insightful. Makes me want to go take a walk right now as the sun sets
It's
outside.
still raining here, but if you can, I encourage you to. No, just what I just said to you. If you can, get out there and take a walk.
That's it. If you can do it, do it. All right. Yes. So you can find us at themarshallforest.com. We are on YouTube at the Marshall Forest Coaching, and the links to Facebook, Instagram, everything else will be in the bio and description of this video. Wishing you progress on your path and good health throughout your day. This is the Marshall Forest out.